Merry Christmas! Dinner was full!
Excellent!
The day after the big Northern California earthquake, the San Francisco Bay Area, the digging out continues, and so does the counting of the dead.
Coming up a little later on CNN Sports Tonight, we'll have the announcement of Pete Rose being banned from baseball for life.
The wall that the East Germans put up in 1961 to keep its people in will now be breached by anybody who wants to leave.
This is the Decibel Geek Podcast with Aaron Camaro and Chris Czynszak.
It's rad. It's gnarly. It's the Decibel Geek Podcast, and we're back once again. I'm Aaron Camaro, joined as always by Chris Czynszak, and man, have we gotten an awesome response to 1989 Year in Review, Part 1.
Yeah, people were thirsty for stuff from 25 years ago.
Yeah, it's pretty cool, man. We really got to see, what it was like in a year when hard rock and heavy metal truly was king. When these bands that we talk about every single week here, 25 years later, were at the top of the charts.
It makes me feel so old to know it's been that long.
I know, it's crazy, but it's a good refresher to go back and see all the cool stuff that was going on in 1989.
And so,
I guess we start out right where we picked off. We went through half of the year last time, and that brings us up to July. So, Chris, what are some of the compelling, the important news stories kicking us off at the beginning of the midway point through 1989?
Well, July starts off interesting. July 4th, 14-year-old at the time actress Drew Barrymore attempted suicide.
Riveting.
And I remember that was a big deal in the press. It was her whole story. She was such a big child star,
right? And around that time, I think a lot of it was a thing for child stars from the 70s and the early 80s to be having downfalls and problems
when the drugs kick in.
Right? Yeah, and Drew Barrymore was definitely one of them.
And then another on the next day, on July 5th. Rod Stewart hits his head while on stage and knocks himself out.
What did he hit himself in the head with?
I don't know. I assume they took him to the hospital, and, maybe that's where the whole stomach pumping story came from.
Yeah, he hit himself in the head with something, and then had to get his stomach pumped. And what it was, David Lee Roth damn near cut his head in half with a sword and still finished the show that time.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not a big fan of Rod's stuff from this era. I'll take the Faces era and Jeff Beck group any day over this stuff.
Yeah, Rod Stewart's just too weird.
No Rod Stewart music on today's show, promise. I know
Never.
The two of you that were hoping for it, sorry.
All right, so let's get into the music. I mean, because like we said, there's so many great albums that came out in 1989, and that's how we do it around here when we do these year in reviews. So what's the first big album that comes out this year, this part of the year, that we can look forward to today?
Well, to me, on July 25th, Alice Cooper puts out the Thrash album. And Alice Cooper he started his comeback a couple of years before this, around 86, with Constrictor and the Nightmare Returns tour.
Yeah, but it'd been a little while.
And then he did Raise Your Fist and Yell, and they had moderate success. But when he put this album out, it really touched a nerve with people, and it really blew up. Mm-hmm. Mostly, but the biggest reason for that would be the single Poison that came out. It was a huge hit. It was his first top 10 single since You and Me from Lace and Whiskey in 1977, a much different song.
Wow.
And Lace and Whiskey, if you ask any Alice fan, just about all of them will tell you they hate the album. I personally like it, but it's not. If you're looking for hard rock and stuff, Lace and Whiskey is not where you want to go. But this album is, because there's a lot of good stuff on this album. This album, he pulled out the big guns on this album. He got guest performances including John Bon Jovi, Stiv Bators, Steven Tyler, as well as Kane Roberts, who coming back to work on this album. He had left the band in 88. And songwriting contributions from Joan Jett, Diane Warren, John Bon Jovi, and Richie Sambora.
See, how can you go wrong with that in 1989? And I think it was around this time that Alice Cooper kind of realized how well his persona and his style lends itself to the just kind of straightforward rock that's really popular at the time.
Yeah, it's funny, though, because like a lot of people, including me, because I wasn't a big Alice fan growing up. I didn't know much about him, and I didn't really pay attention to the music. I guess he was before my time, but like all of a sudden Thrash hits big, and then people are like paying attention to Alice Cooper, And I think they started thinking, well, his old stuff must sound like this too.
Right, but not
but
all
it doesn't.
of it does.
Most of the old stuff is not what you would consider heavy metal at all. It's more hard rock at most at times, but more theatrical than anything else.
Right, and this featured a lot more, in-your-face drums, heavy bass, and, shredding guitars.
And he always had good players, and Alice to this day
he's Alice Cooper.
To this day, he's excellent at picking musicians for his band.
Sure, and he's only going to take the best of the best, and had all those stellar appearances from all those top names of the day.
Yeah, and he would go on to do the Hey Stupid album after this one, and it was a pretty damn impressive comeback for somebody who had been around as long as he had.
Yeah, like I said, that persona of Alice Cooper really resonated in this time. Especially being the video age and him being such a visual character.
Guy Man Dude played guitar on that Spark in the Dark song.
I think I remember Guy Man Dude. Wasn't he the dude with the tall blonde hair with the fancy guitar, like the Flying V? He was in all the rock magazines. You could buy his VHS and learn how to shred.
I don't know if he was the guy with the learn guitar. I think that was Doug Marks that was the learn to play guitar guy. But Guy Man Dude, he was born Guy Schiffman. And before he got into heavy metal, he was a professional drummer for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And he toured with the lead singer of Yes, John Anderson, for the Animation tour. You'd never expect him to tour with a member of Yes, because it's a progressive band. He was also part of the heavy metal supergroup The Dudes of Wrath, along with Paul Stanley and Tommy Lee, who were assembled to record a song called Shocker from the movie Shocker.
Oh, yeah. Right on.
He's part of that group, too.
That's right.
But Guy Man Dude made it his name into a band, basically, just like Alice Cooper.
Sure.
And I was really into all the shredding guitar players back at this time, and that just was right up my alley. And the video is freaking hilarious. It's filmed as cheaply as possible, and it's filmed all along the Sunset Strip. And they have there's a part where he's on a skateboard playing his guitar behind his head and shit. July 9th, all 4 original members of the Monkees reunite in L.A. for a concert, and then the following day they are inducted into the Hollywood Walk of Fame. I just wanted to mention this because those of us that remember the late 80s, there was a real resurgence of the Monkees. It was
for sure. I mean,
because Nickelodeon started showing the old TV show, and kids just loved it.
Oh man, I remember being a kid and watching reruns of the Monkees, and it was the same TV shows that my mom watched when she was a teenager, and they were hilarious, and I loved it. And it was such a great put together show. That even if you weren't a fan of the music, it was still an entertaining TV show. But you know what? Even the Monkees had some damn good songs they wrote.
They did.
Join us on August 13th for the music event of the year.
It's the Moscow Music Peace Festival, and it's only on pay-per-view TV. Join Bon Jovi for a 4-hour rock and roll spectacular from Russia with Motley Crue, Scorpions, Gorky Park, Skid Row, Cinderella, and Ozzy Osbourne. It's not on MTV, and it's not on C-SPAN. Call your cable operator now. The Moscow Music Peace Festival, Sunday, August 13th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, and again at midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific.
I guess that brings us up to August, and on the 11th and 12th was probably, I would say, the biggest rock event of 1989.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair to say.
I'm talking about the Moscow Music Peace Festival held in the Soviet Union. First event of its kind put together by Doc McGee and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And the headlining acts, pretty much a list of who's who in hard rock and heavy metal in 1989, headlined by, the kings of it all, the pop rock sensation Bon Jovi.
Oh.
Oh, yeah, Gorky Park was there, too. The Prince of Darkness, Ozzy Osbourne, Motley Crue, Skid Row, Cinderella, and the Scorpions.
Yep.
Yeah. What a lineup. This is a band that, we've talked about quite a bit here on the Decibel Geek Podcast. One of my favorite all-time bands. And at this point, although Enough's Enough's been playing all the coolest parties in Chicago since 1984, they released their debut album in 1989. Derek Schulman was the name of a record executive back then. He signed Enough's Enough to Atco Records. And he made the band a pretty high priority in 89 after he'd worked his way up to president and CEO. So he signs the band and works his way up. He's the guy that's known for discovering Bon Jovi and Cinderella as well.
Really?
So this was a guy that was out there looking for the next big thing. I think what he was looking for was the next Poison.
Well, judging by the image they had at the time, that looked like it.
And it's almost like one of them things. It's like, well, we got this band. They're really, really great. Do they look like Poison? No.
Yeah.
Can we make them look like Poison? Well, I guess we could.
So they didn't have that look before that.
No, not really. They were more, I don't know, to look at them, they were more Cheap Trick, influenced,
Right.
and these guys were from Chicago. They weren't from the Sunset Strip.
On August 24th, Pete Rose is suspended from baseball for life for gambling.
Oh, Uncle Pete.
That sucked. And it was...
So what was he doing? Betting on his own games?
Yes.
So he was the coach.
Yeah.
And he was betting on his
betting
own
on the
team.
Reds. Yeah.
So that's funny because, on one half you'd say my team is so good.
Yeah, I'm
that
betting.
I want to bet on them.
Well, he bet on other games too.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, you could say, well, I could, throw a monkey wrench in this and really help myself win some big money. Shouldn't gamble.
Did he?
Not like that.
Did he do the wrong thing? Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But then you got these guys juicing up on steroids and shit.
Sure.
And it's like what he did kind of seems to pale in comparison by today's standards.
Right. And I think it was just such a big news story at the time because, it's Pete Rose we're talking about.
It was a huge news story.
Pete Rose, he's still not in the Baseball Hall of Fame. And
still banned from baseball. Yeah. He hasn't done himself any favors either, though.
No.
So Pete Rose is not an easy person to like because he doesn't make himself easy to like. But if you're just going based on what the man did as a player on the field, it's undeniable.
Undeniable.
One of the greatest baseball players. And we talked sports last week. I'm going to shut up. This is a band called Lion. And the album that came out was called Trouble in Angel City. It came out on August 11th. It was their third and their final studio album. The band featured Doug Aldrich on guitar, who has played with Whitesnake, Burning Ring, Dio, Hurricane, House of Lords, and currently with a really great band called Revolution Saints. I've been checking that out lately. And also had Mark Edwards on drums, who played with Steeler back in the 80s.
Wow, kind of an all-star band.
Kind of, yeah. And they're best known because they wrote the theme song to the 86 animated Transformers movie.
Oh, yeah?
That's Lion.
Oh, that's cool.
I hate that's what they're best known for, but it's true.
It's still pretty cool.
But Mark Edwards, in 89, I think it was around September, he suffered a broken neck after falling off a cliff while competing in a motorcycle race.
Dang.
And the band disbanded a month later, and Cal Swan, the singer, and Doug Aldrich would team up in a band called Bad Moon Rising, along with former Hurricane Alice members Jackie Ramos and Ian Mayo. Jerry Bess, who was the bass player, would later reappear with Freak of Nature, Mike Tramp's band that came out in the 90s.
That's cool.
And he also, along with Doug, briefly toured in the late 90s with Dio. So there's a lot of pedigree with these guys.
All right, and from that, we'll talk about a band that pretty much everybody around here's heard of because, man, we've played the shit out of them over the years. Talking about the L.A. Guns, and, man, they're striking while the iron is hot, and this is a follow-up to their successful 1988 self-titled debut. So after coming off the road playing with bands like AC/DC, Iron Maiden, and Def Leppard, Kings of the World in 89, Cocked and Loaded pretty much picks up where they left off with the debut album. It's good, heavy stuff. And this is another example of a band with their classic lineup, and God knows they've had more than a few.
A few, yeah.
Kelly Nichols on bass, Steve Riley on drums, Phil Lewis on vocals, Mick Cripps and Tracy Guns on guitar. And, L.A. Guns was one of those bands that as a kid you kind of had to be sly about listening to them.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't want your mom to walk in while you were listening to Sex Action and stuff like that. So, but this one here was their biggest album, number 38 on the U.S. Billboard charts, platinum sales. I mean, hell, the VHS video that accompanies the album went gold.
Yeah.
The video compilation. They had so many singles off this one, Never Enough, Malaria, I Want to Be Your Man, of course, Ballad of Jane. That was a huge hit single for them. And, this one, again, the highest charting, highest selling album the other L.A. Guns would ever release.
You've got a style that's unmistakably you. It's in your work, it's in the way you dress, it's even in the car you drive, your Chevy Beretta. You know a great look when you see it, and it doesn't have to be expensive to be beautiful.
The heartbeat of America.
Nobody's swinging like the heartbeat of America.
Everything's set for tonight, Mr. Trump.
I wonder what Trump's game is this time.
Trump's got a new game. Trump's got a new deal. What's your game, though? Heard about Trump's new deal? What?
Trump has a new game. What is it?
Mr. Trump, please.
My new game is Trump, the game.
Trump, the game where you deal for everything you've ever wanted to own. Because it's not whether you win or lose, it's whether you win.
Yes!
Play Trump, the game from Milton Bradley.
I think you'll like it.
There's something happening here.
Tom Cruise.
What it is,
An Oliver Stone picture.
clear.
Born on the 4th of July. Rated R. Now playing in select areas. Starts Friday, January 5th at theaters everywhere.
His name is Dalton.
You don't look like much to me.
Opinions vary.
He's the best there is.
Damn, that hurts, doesn't it?
He says he's nice.
I want you to be nice.
Always nice.
I know you're not a nice guy.
Until it's time not to be nice.
He's real good.
Roadhouse, rated R.
Starts Friday at selected theaters.
David Banner wanted to end the running. He wanted to live in peace.
You have to stop someplace.
But once again, they made him angry. Maybe angry enough to kill.
Maybe I belong in a cage.
Now imprisoned, he will struggle to hide the fury buried within him. But he will not succeed.
I can't stand trial. You have no choice.
Because now, David Banner faces his greatest trial. The trial of the Incredible Hulk.
Night Court gets game show fever when Bull breaks the bank for big bucks. You won't believe his bonus.
I want to be your love slave.
Say, that is good news. And My Two Dads hits rock and roll platinum. It's
plutonium, baby.
And it's
Hey.
the Monkees' Davy Jones with Herman's Hermits' Peter Noon.
You've got a lovely daughter.
I could die.
It's two classic rock stars with two classy dads. My Two Dads after Night Court. Wednesday, only on NBC.
All right, and we're back. This is the Decibel Geek Podcast. Today, we look at the world of 1989 through the eyes of rock and roll, and we're having a hell of a time doing it. Chris Sinzak with you. I'm Aaron Camaro, and right now we're going to talk about some other things going on in 1989, things going on in the world of television.
Yeah, the Emmy Awards that year, Outstanding Comedy Series, was Cheers.
Yeah, awesome show. I love Cheers.
And it looks like L.A. Law and The Wonder Years racked up a ton of nominations that year.
Yeah, they did. Nicola, if you want to know what's going on in the world of 89, a great place to look is the Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards because, you know, we were kids back then, so we should be able to relate to some of this.
From Universal Studios Hollywood in California, it's the 3rd annual Kids' Choice Awards. Featuring the Beach Boys, the Chicago Bears, Keith Coogan, Josie Davis, Corey Feldman, Debbie Gibson, Sarah Gilbert, Whoopi Goldberg, Benji Gregory, Bobby the Brain Heenan, Jason Hervey, Bon Jovi, Florence Griffith Joyner, Lassie, Danica McKellar, Alyssa Milano, Jeremy Miller, Danny Pintaro, Keisha Knight Pulliam, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Molly Scott, Candace Vallely, Chris Young, and the Don't Just Sit There Kids, Matt Brown, Wendy Douglas, and Allie Smith, with special musical performances by the New Kids on the Block and special guest star Bill Kirkenbauer.
Appearing on the Kids' Choice Awards in 89, Bobby the Brain Heenan, my hero. And performances by the New Kids on the Block and Corey Feldman.
Oh, boy.
What was he performing?
I'm sure it had something to do with Michael Jackson.
Yeah, maybe. All right. Favorite TV actor of 89, according to Nickelodeon Kids' Choice Awards, Alf.
He works hard at his craft.
Favorite TV.
Now, was it Alf or whoever had his hand up Alf's ass?
it was Alf.
Oh, okay.
The guy with the hand, he never gets any of the credit.
Yeah. I guess
favorite TV actress, Alyssa Milano. Yeah. Favorite TV show, man, the show that's just raping the competition. In 1989, number one show of all of them, The Cosby Show.
Oh, that's bad. That wasn't a pudding pop.
Favorite movie? Well, you know, The Power of VHS. This one, Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Oh, God, I got so sick of that movie.
It was good, though. I liked it.
It was good, but it got shoved down our throats.
The kids' favorite singer, John Bon Jovi, of course. It's 1989. Favorite actor, Arnold Schwarzenegger. It's 1989.
That sounds about right.
Let's see, ClassicTVHits.com, top 10 highest rated shows of 89, Monday Night Football, Empty Nest, The Wonder Years, that was a great show, 60 Minutes, The Golden Girls, because they must have been back-to-back, it's the old people.
It's the old person contingent.
Yeah. America's Funniest Home Videos, that was huge in 89, A Different World spin-off of Cosby, Cheers, as we mentioned, Roseanne was mentioned, and
Cosby Show.
The Cosby Show.
I never thought we'd be nervous about talking about the Cosby Show.
That's too funny, man. Who would have ever thought that in 1989 when that show was king, number one? TV debuts in 1989, Quantum Leap. Man, I'll never forget the episode that was kind of like a parody of Kiss.
Yeah, History Science Theater did a whole commentary on that episode.
I looked so forward to that episode when it showed it the week before, and he jumped into the Ace Frehley looking dude and was like, oh boy. I was like, oh yeah, can't wait.
It was cool.
Another show I loved, Coach. That was a great one. Tales from the Crypt debuts in 1989.
Wait a minute. So that was a busy year for Steve Riley.
Oh, yeah, it was. He was all over the place.
Easy joke.
He's got more stuff coming up in 89 to mention later on. Rescue 911, Cops, those make debuts. Seinfeld makes his debut in the same year as Saved by the Bell. Who would have guessed that?
Classic television.
Life Goes On. Who could forget that one? American Gladiators makes its debut in 89.
I remember that show.
Doogie Howser, MD.
Yeah.
That got huge in 89. Who could forget Baywatch?
Yeah.
Pamela Anderson. Family Matters with Urkel. The Simpsons makes their debut in 89.
And they're still around.
Still going.
25 years.
Yeah, and my favorite animated series, besides Simpsons, of course, G.I. Joe, All-American Hero. Love that stuff.
Now you know.
Goodbye in TV, Simon and Simon, Webster, Dynasty, Moonlighting, Family Ties, and Miami Vice.
I know.
Yeah, Miami Vice is gone in 1989.
No more intro clip with the girl in the thong.
No, such a bummer.
We'll always have our memories.
At least.
All right, so we're into September now.
Yeah, we're rocking right along. Things are about to really pick up in 1989 as far as albums coming out.
Yeah, this and we've talked about this album. We've played a number of songs off this album. And there's not a whole lot I need to say about this. But,
it's only one of the greatest albums of all time. There wasn't a whole lot of people in my junior high school did not have that on either cassette or CD.
It was huge, and it was
everywhere.
Recorded at Little Mountain Studios in Vancouver with Bob Rock producing.
Love it.
It was kind of had the magic touch in that at that time. This was number one on the Billboard Top 200 chart.
When I think of Motley Crue, I think this is what I imagined was 1989. Top of the world, Motley Crue owning it.
And it was six times platinum in America. Wow. It was huge. And you always knew when a rock band had broken through when all the chicks were really into them.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just the guy. Like, they were probably bigger with girls at that period.
Right, because of the song Without You.
Yeah.
And Time for Change, and
Same old situation.
Right, those songs. In '89 there was a formula to be followed to find success.
Yeah.
On MTV and radio airplanes, selling T-shirts and selling concert tickets, and that's it. And Motley Crue, man, they nailed it. They sure did.
They released it at the right time. It's not my favorite Motley Crue album, but it's.
You gotta put it right up there.
It's up at the top for as far as mission accomplished.
Yeah,
like the playing's really good, and it's filled with hooks. The whole thing.
Oh man, yeah, Mick Mars kills it on this album. I mean, the whole band they're really playing almost at their peak for that lineup.
Mm-hmm. Of course, in '94 they did a pretty good album too.
Right, yeah, that's what I'm saying. When I think of Motley Crue, I think of things separately with the John Corabi era stuff. But as far as Motley Crue goes, you got the young Motley Crue and you got the Dr. Feelgood era Motley Crue.
Okay, so you got your pick next.
This is without a doubt one of my favorite albums from the late '80s. I mean, Faster Pussycat's been lurking around L.A. since '85, and they released their self-titled debut in '87. They toured with bands like Alice Cooper, David Lee Roth, Motorhead, Motley Crue. Those guys are the kings in '89. And Kiss. Oh, yeah, I'm talking about Faster Pussycat. Featured in The Decline 2. Pretty heavily in that movie.
Yeah.
And this is a pretty highly anticipated follow-up album to their debut. They moved a lot of units with this one, powered by the single House of Pain. The video was all over MTV. And, here's the thing about Faster Pussycat. They're known for their pretty love ballads about death and abandonment.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're not really happy songs. Especially House of Pain's a really depressing song.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The songs, the ballads by Fast Pussycat were always like pretty to listen to. But when you dove into them, it's like, well, there's some really dark shit going on in the undercurrent of this song.
Right.
Wake Me When It's Over is loaded full of hard rocking tunes, and like I said, it's one of my favorite albums of the late 80s. Fast Pussycat is easily one of the most underrated bands to come out of that scene, because, damn, they're just so good. I love Fast Pussycat so much. They kick ass.
I was pretty partial to the song Poison Ivy.
Yeah, that's a great song,
I remember
too.
when that came. It didn't, and I remember the first time I saw it on Headbangers Ball, I was like, this is going to be a huge hit, and it just never took off.
No, I mean...
But it was so damn catchy.
They did all right for themselves.
Oh, they did. House of Pain was a pretty big hit.
Kind of a funny story that I read. I'm going to say allegedly, because I don't know all the facts on this, but allegedly, drummer Mark Michaels would be arrested for trying to FedEx himself some heroin.
It's true.
Is that true?
Yeah, I've heard interviews with Tammy, and he's confirmed it.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
so then
what a knucklehead.
So then they get Steve Riley to come in and lay down the rest of the drum tracks for that album. So there's your third Steve
Two
Riley
bands
reference.
and hosting a television show. That's pretty incredible. Good job, Steve.
Not bad. Number 48 on the U.S. Billboard album charts. The single House of Pain is huge. It goes up to 28 on the singles charts in the United States. And again, the highest charting, highest selling album from the Fast Pussycat that they'd ever release.
Wow.
89. That was the year.
It really was.
That was the year for this stuff.
Okay, so September 29th, Zsa Zsa Gabor is convicted of slapping a police officer in Beverly Hills.
Darling, how dare you?
I remember when this happened, and
he put his hands on me.
You remember all those horrible TV shows like A Current Affair and Hard Copy?
Yes.
They went nuts over this. It was like Zsa Zsa television 24 hours a day.
Zsa Zsa is always on the go. Now, after getting a guilty verdict from her California peers, Zsa Zsa could be going to jail for her misdeeds. Tomorrow's the day of judgment when the oft-wedded Baroness of Beverly Hills will find out her sentence.
I break in rocks in the hot sun. I fought the law and the law won. I fought the law and the law won.
Company is offering highlights of the trial along with a recreation of the events which led up to her arrest. The tape won't be in stores until Monday, but we have it first, an Entertainment Tonight exclusive. The People vs. Zsa Zsa Gabor video is mostly an hour-long rehash of local news coverage of the Beverly Hills trial and sentencing. And despite reports there'd be a recreation of the infamous cop-slapping incident, the video only shows a shot of where it all happened. No recreation.
Nobody beat me up today yet. That's what's new.
Meanwhile, Zsa Zsa continued her talk show circuit by taping Donahue. And sparks flew during the question and answer session when Zsa Zsa was confronted by a member of the studio audience.
I'm so glad you won't be on Larry King anymore because you're getting all this publicity and we don't care to hear about you. Okay, we need to save this. You know, she's giving us blondes a bad name. You're making us all look like... You're giving blondes a bad name.
You are too jealous. You're too beautiful to be so jealous. You'll never make it, my dear, if you're a bit jealous. I know women like you.
It was sort of the beginning of TMZ.
It really was. That's basically what TMZ sprouted out from, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was like, and I remember at the time thinking, why do we care what these people do in their off time?
If we have a news TV show that's a news entertainment TV show, we take a stupid story that nobody should care about.
It's really a stupid story.
Can we manipulate it into a way to make it seem like a huge story where everybody cares about it and everybody tunes in to hear about it?
Yeah.
TMZ. That's how it all started.
Are we surprised that a privileged Hollywood diva slapped a police officer? It's not really that big a stretch to imagine.
No, but it was an experiment that proved very fruitful for the producers of those TV shows that were treating that as if it was a huge news story.
I still remember it today.
I do too. It was a big deal. Why? I have no idea.
Know. Okay, so
crazy.
Staying in September, another album that was recorded at Little Mountain Studios in Vancouver, but not with Bob Rock. This one was recorded with Bruce Fairbairn, who, of course, would go on to produce Psycho Circus. Moving on. Aerosmith recorded Pump, and this is the only Aerosmith album to date to have 3 top 10 singles in the Billboard Hot 100 and 3 number 1 singles in the mainstream rock tracks chart.
Wow.
This album went 7 times platinum.
Wow.
Went to the number 5 on the Billboard Top 200 chart. I mean, it just massively big album. most important fact for me, being a Kiss fan, was the photography for the album was by Norman Seeff, who did the Hotter Than Hell album cover.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Strange. All them years later, that man's still in business.
I know.
That's cool.
So, but yeah, there's a lot of good track. Of course, there's a lot of Love in an Elevator, Janie's Got a Gun.
Yeah.
You've heard them a billion times.
Oh, my goodness.
And I always call those kind of new Aerosmith songs. Next.
This is a good one, man. You chose this, and I'm proud of you for doing it. I love this band.
Yeah, and going through my crack research that I go through on Wikipedia, this album wasn't listed, and I started digging more through other lists and stuff, and remembered, oh yeah, Shotgun Messiah put out an album in 1989.
Yeah,
and I hadn't thought about that in a while. And if you don't know who they are, they're a band from Sweden. They were originally called Kingpin.
That's right.
And their album was actually called Bop City, the Kingpin album.
That's right.
And I love the names of the band members. You had Zinny J. Zan, Harry K. Cody, Tim or Tim Scold.
Right.
And the greatest drummer name of all time, Styx Galore.
Styx Galore. Awesome.
There's nothing more late 80s than the name Styx Galore.
Yeah, this one was back when Zinny was still singing lead, and before Tim Scold would take over lead vocals, which I prefer that.
Yeah.
But it took me a little while to get into Shotgun Messiah. It was the second album, Second Coming, that I got into them.
They had a video for, I think, a song called Shout It Out that was on this album, and I do remember when that video was out. Like, Headbangers Ball would play it at like 2 in the morning or something.
Right.
Yeah, I remember seeing Tim Scold in the video and thinking, that's a white dude with dreadlocks. It was like the strangest thing I'd ever seen.
Yeah, he had some crazy hair back then.
He did.
That's for sure.
And he would, if you don't know, he went on to play with Marilyn Manson for a long time, too. And that was strange to see someone make the leap from glam rock into the industrial stuff.
Right. I like Tim Scold, and he is
Good
hella
musician.
talented. Has done all kinds of different stuff.
Yeah. So October, I guess this is the biggest news story of the year.
I would
for
say,
America, at
yeah,
least.
definitely in the United States, the biggest news story. Of course, talking about the October 17th San Francisco area earthquake that measured a 7.1 in magnitude. It killed 67 people, injured over 3,000, over 100,000 buildings damaged or destroyed.
Jesus Christ, we gotta report that they might have on the car.
We're over the Bay Bridge now, once again. A section of the upper deck has collapsed. There appears to be a rescue helicopter on the upper deck. Where it collapsed, it just missed the bus.
George Watson is standing by right now in San Francisco, where they took the brunt of this earthquake today. George.
The city is in gridlock. I hate to paint a dire picture, but it's the kind of scenario where you see looting happening sometime in the night.
There are some fires, obviously, in the city of San Francisco. Again, as we take a look at that, that appears to be what would be the Marina District.
The entire upper deck of the Cypress structure, that is the section of highway that connects the Bay Bridge to the Nimitz, Highway 880, it just seemed to collapse during the shaker. You could see those ripples in the road. I'm guessing, but what I am afraid of, and the information we seem to be getting seems to confirm this, that those ripples in small part are caused by vehicles trapped underneath.
I remember seeing the footage of the bridges flipped over and the cars thrown all over the place. And, man, what a horrific scene. And that made me say, I'm never moving to California.
Well, and then the World Series was going on at the time. And I was a Jose Canseco fan. I wasn't really an A's fan, but I pulled for the A's because he was my favorite player.
Yeah, because he's such a cool stand-up guy.
Yeah, totally. Great role model. It was A's against the Giants, so it was a Bay Area World Series.
Yeah.
And I remember watching it, and all of a sudden, all the cameras start cutting out, and you hear them go, "Oh, we're having an earthquake," and it was wild watching it live. I'll never forget that.
Candy Maldonado with the hesitation, allowing Jose Canseco to score, and he fails to get Dave Parker at second base. So the Oakland A's take.
I'll tell you what, we're having an earthquake.
Yeah, now we're up to the moment that a lot of us have been waiting.
Yeah, man,
for.
1989 was awesome for Kiss fans because we had 2 big albums that came out that year in the Kiss sphere.
Yeah, we did, and Kiss released "Hot in the Shade" on October 17th, a day that I remember clearly because this is the first Kiss album I bought brand new the day of release.
Yeah, were you at the mall waiting for the gates to open up to run in and grab it? I was too.
I was at Sam Goody waiting for them to open.
You bet.
I still remember.
It was that Camelot music.
I remember waiting for it to open. I remember the clerk laughing at me when I told him what I was there for. He's like, "You didn't have to get here right away." He's like, "There's plenty of copies to go around, I promise."
I'm sure back then, yeah, they really stocked it because buying albums and being there to get the albums the day of the sales, that was a big thing, man. That was important.
It was.
We're kind of lucky to have grown up when we did to be able to experience stuff like that.
Yeah, I feel bad for my kids that don't get to do that.
I do too.
Know.
I really do.
I have good memories. That camping out for tickets and all that stuff. Yeah, it was fun times. And you know, those of you that are hardcore Kiss fans, you know all about this album. Some people think it's too long. I'm always of the opinion you can hit the skip button. I'd rather have more Kiss than less Kiss.
Right.
But it's an interesting album. It's an eclectic mix. A lot of it is demos that they just polished up and released.
Right.
Because you know the band was honestly hurting for money at this period. And Eric Carr started having his rift with the band because they used drum machines on some of the songs.
Yeah,
but I think that goes back to it being demos. I think they were originally going to be demos, and then they decided not to lay everything onto tape.
Because back then it costs a lot of money to get studio time,
Right.
so the cheaper the better. You know, if you're just going to polish up some demos, you know, you're not going to bring the drummer in. But I can't agree with it.
Well, and it was recorded at a place called the Fortress in Hollywood, and I remember we talked to Toby Wright about this. Not that he didn't work on the album, but he was taken aback a bit by when we told him that because he's like, well, the Fortress was nothing but a little dinky demo studio.
Yeah.
Like you at most it was more of a rehearsal space than anything else. So that's why it was considered recorded there because it was probably just demoed there.
Right.
And they just polished it up.
Nonetheless, there's some pretty good gems on this album.
Forever was a massive hit.
Right.
It brought them back into the limelight again. For
that was
a bit.
Kiss going again, you know, kind of like we said with Alice Cooper, being able to acclimate yourself to what was huge at the time. You know, what's Bon Jovi doing? Well, Bon Jovi's releasing sweet love ballads, you know, just
Right.
like all these other bands. They're getting their prime time MTV airplay, and Kiss is going to get a piece of that, and they definitely do with Forever.
And Paul had Hide Your Heart also, and
Yeah.
so you know it was a lot of Paul heavy stuff that got all the attention. But
that was the time.
Gene had some decent stuff on here, and this.
Yeah, there's some good songs on that one. Maybe not on the level of Kiss albums that you'd rank from the best to worst. I don't know where that one probably wouldn't end up on the top half, but you know it's better than a lot.
It'll rank high for me because of, like I said, it meant a lot to me at the time.
At the time,
I listened to it hundreds of times in a row when it came out.
Yeah, I remember my cousin Rhonda went to see Kiss live on that tour with the Sphinx and all that, and I couldn't go. My parents still thought I was too young at that time, but she brought me back the T-shirt, the white T-shirt, and I wore it like every day almost.
I could do a whole bonus track on the show. But
I'm sure we probably could and should.
Awesome concert.
Awesome, great. Kiss '89, gotta love it.
Yeah. So, all right, so what do we got next?
Let's see. You got
the biggest news story of the year. In my opinion.
so hungry.
Yeah, exactly. I had a segue set up. I didn't even know it. October 30th, Smith Dairy in Orrville, Ohio, makes the world's largest milkshake. 1,575 gallons.
Wow. You got some sort of endorsement deal with Smith Dairy that I don't know about?
No, I'm just thirsty. I was thirsty when I made that note.
Nice.
Like, that sounds interesting.
That's a big milkshake.
I guess so. So, okay, one more song, and then we got to go into the break. This was and like I mentioned earlier, I was really into all the guitar player stuff back at this period of time.
Yeah.
And
there was plenty to choose from back then.
There was a lot to choose from. And one of the albums that came out that actually kind of broke through mainstream a bit was Flying in a Blue Dream by Joe Satriani. And this was it went number 23 on the Billboard charts and was on there for 39 weeks.
That's not bad for an instrumental album.
Well,
not
I mean, he
bad
sings a number of tracks
Does
on
he?
it. Yeah,
Oh,
but
right
it was certified gold in 90. I mean, it's sold over 500,000 copies.
Wow.
That tells you kind of how big guitar playing really was at that time.
Music was different back then. You know, these guys that are in these bands that we're talking about are all pretty much virtuosos at their instruments.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you talk to a guy like Michael Wagner, and he'll tell you back then these guys practiced and practiced and drove and strove to be better guitar players than the next guy. It all started with Eddie Van Halen, you know, and Ace Frehley and guys like that. You know, it's like, we got to be better than these guys. Well, then we got to be better than these guys, and on and on.
Yep.
And in '89, all that guitar playing, you know, you see what bands are on top.
Yeah.
And they're all
People were into
guitar-driven
it.
bands. Yeah.
And Joe Satriani, man, he was a guitar teacher, and he's taught a lot of famous guitar players, and he had a signature Ibanez version come out of his guitar.
Yeah.
And man, that thing was fucking in demand. And I had a friend that had one, and it played beautifully.
I bet.
Take your support of the show to the next level. Head over to decibelgeek.com and click on the Amazon link the next time you go shopping. A percentage of your purchase goes back into supporting the show. Not shopping? Click on the donate button and tip your DJs.
On ABC, a new Terrific Tuesday kicks off with Frank Sinatra. Who's the boss? I knew it! Then, TV's best comedy, The Wonder Years, moves to its new night. Followed by this year's newest big hit, Roseanne, at her new time. Then a sneak preview about a super dad.
Okay, dinner's going to be ready in 9 to 11 minutes.
Coach! A night of all new comedy with Who's the Boss? The Wonder Years. Roseanne and Craig T. Nelson in Coach.
It could happen to you.
It's reality.
William Shatner hosts a new series that could make a difference in your life. Rescue 911 premieres Tuesday, September 5th.
Quality made by General Electric. This cellular phone features 832 channel capacity, 30 number memory speed dialing, last number redial, electronic lock while not in use, adjustable volume control, horn alert option included. AB system allows both home and car use. Lighted keypad. Take it from car to car. Optional battery available for true portable use. Lightweight. State-of-the-art maximum 3 watts allowed by law. And look at this fantastic low price.
Live from Los Angeles, the 1989 MTV Video Music Awards. And here's your chance to be there. How? Just go to your record store and look for the MTV Moon Man. Grab a ballot and cast your vote for the best video of the year. Fill it out and mail it in fast. You and a friend can win a trip to LA to see the MTV Video Music Awards live. Hosted by Arsenio Hall, with performances by Paula Abdul, John Bon Jovi and Richie Sambora, Bobby Brown, Cher, The Cult, The Cure, Def Leppard, Tone Loc, The Rolling Stones, and much more. And you're on the guest list for the VIP party. So fill out your ballot for the 1989 Viewers' Choice Awards presented by Pepsi. And watch for the winners of the MTV Video Music Awards Wednesday, September 6th at 9 Eastern, 6 Pacific. You can pick up your ballot at one of the following stores. One prize per chain.
Kiss, a band that invented rock with a vengeance. Their new album, Hot in the Shade, featuring Hide Your Heart, and a new smash single, Forever.
Yeah, so back to 1989, looking at some of the births and deaths of '89.
Okay, born in 1989, Taylor Swift, Daniel Radcliffe, and Chris Brown.
I don't know who Daniel Radcliffe
He is Harry Potter.
Oh, okay. I'm all right with him. Chris Brown, not a fan.
Fuck that guy.
Totally. Taylor Swift, I mean, not my cup of tea, but man, I've heard a lot worse.
She got a cool guitar player.
Yeah, that's true. Deaths of 1989, we've got Mel Blanc, who was the voice of Bugs Bunny and so many others. Lucille Ball passes away in '89. We also lost Gilda Radner from Saturday Night Live. Man,
Bad
I
year
loved
for
her.
comedy, wasn't
yeah. Jim Backus, who played Thurston Howell III.
Yeah.
Lovey on Gilligan's Island. And Vincent Crane, guitarist from The Crazy World of Arthur Brown.
Okay, so that's what CW of AB means. I was like, what the hell is that? What is that? Okay.
It's Vincent Crane.
Well,
that guy lost his mind and died in '89.
I guess so.
Yeah, so there's your births and deaths. Back to the music, because we are in the home stretch here. I've got one. Man, we couldn't do '89 without this band. I love them a lot. You know I do. We talk about them all the time. And I'm talking about Overkill. Now, this is their 4th studio album. It's widely considered to be Overkill's breakthrough album. You know, this is Overkill we're talking about. It is 1989, and their videos aren't getting played alongside Pour Some Sugar on Me.
I wonder why.
But they do get a little MTV airtime on Headbangers Ball. I mean, not bad for 89, you know, as far as a thrash metal band like that. Other big heavy albums, thrash metal bands releasing music in 89, including Sepultura. You played that in part one. Great song. Accept has got an album out that year. Annihilator, Dark Angel, Exodus comes out with Fabulous Disaster. That's a good album. Creators got an album out that year. Metal Church, Blessing in Disguise.
I almost played something from that.
That's a good one. Obituaries got albums out. Sabotage. Testament comes out with Practice What You Preach, and you get new music from another good heavy band, Suicidal Tendencies. In 1989, they come out with their fourth studio album. It's the first to feature the stellar bass talents of Robert Trujillo. Oh, yeah. The full title of this album, Controlled by Hatred and Feeling Like Shit, Deja Vu. Wikipedia tells it like this. The album itself is represented as 2 fictional EPs. The first 4 tracks are Controlled by Hatred, and the rest are Feel Like Shit, Deja Vu. It features 6 new recordings, 4 of which are covers of No Mercy songs. One is a cover of a Lost Psychos, and outtake from the previous album sessions with a shortened version of How Will I Laugh Tomorrow, as it's heard in the song's video, and previously unreleased softer, heavy emotion version of that song. I don't know about any of that.
Somebody was doing some good drugs.
All I know is it kicks ass. Robert Trujillo joins the band, and then this one and the next 2 albums go gold?
Maybe not.
Maybe not. This one goes to 150 on the U.S. Billboard album charts. Not bad. Good, heavy thrash rock from 1989.
I remember my parents shaking their head when they saw that I had a cassette tape and the name of the band. They're like, really?
Yeah, it is kind of a far name. I remember Suicidal Tendencies as being like in the ads in the back of like Metal Edge and Hit Parader and stuff, and the T-shirts, and they'd have these crazy looking T-shirts, and then the name Suicidal Tendencies, and I always thought, I don't know if I want to listen to a band called Suicidal Tendencies.
What is it going to do to me?
Right, and then you finally hear it, and it's like, oh man, this is an amazing album, amazing band. I wish I'd been listening to these guys all along.
It's the worst marketing technique in history.
I know.
Have your band cause their fans to kill themselves, therefore they can't buy any more albums.
No repeat sales.
Yeah, no repeat sales. All your fans are dead.
Tough name, great band.
Yeah.
Suicidal Tendencies.
So move into November 11th. After 28 years, the Berlin Wall is open to the west.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down the wall.
It was a huge, huge news story.
Yeah, it was.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
From ABC, this is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings. Reporting tonight from Berlin.
From the Berlin Wall specifically, take a look at them. They've been there since last night. They are here in the thousands. They are here in the tens of thousands. Occasionally they shout, Die Mauer muss weg, the wall must go. Thousands and thousands of West Germans come to make the point that the wall has suddenly become irrelevant. Something, as you can see, almost to party on. How do you measure such an astonishing moment in history? The East German government said tonight they were going to make more openings in the wall, at least a dozen more, put bulldozers right through the wall so that more people could cross to the west.
I remember seeing that on the news where, you know, they got the people up on the wall and they're taking pieces of it as souvenirs, and, you know, it was a big thing. You know, that really kind of put a close to the whole Cold War deal.
Well, it's all thanks to David Hasselhoff, remember?
Totally David Hasselhoff. It's the crossover appeal. The Germans love him, the Americans love him, Russians love him, everybody.
Baywatch premiered that year.
Everybody loves David Hasselhoff in 1989.
So with all these political tensions going on now,
that's what's missing.
The Hoff needs to come back.
We have no Hoff nowadays.
He's sitting in his apartment drunk eating a cheeseburger.
Right, and he could be saving us from ISIS and the Taliban and everything else.
Yeah, get Kid out of the garage and get your ass up here.
Where's the Hoff when you need him?
Don't hassle the Hoff. All right. Back to big serious.
No Mark St. John to ride shotgun.
Oh, man. He dug deep for that one. Okay. So I've got my last pick for the show. You've got the last couple. In November, Whitesnake released Slip of the Tongue. Peaks at number 10 on the Billboard charts, produced by Mike Klink and Keith Olsen. Interesting story behind this album, because people remember Adrian Vandenberg was a guitarist on the previous tour.
Right.
And but prior to recording this album, Adrian Vandenberg sustained a serious wrist injury, and it made it impossible for him to play without being in a lot of pain. And after Coverdale had waited long enough for him to heal, he had no choice but to find a new guitar player. So enter Frank Zappa's old guitar player, Steve Vai, and David Lee Roth's old guitar player.
Yeah.
And the reason he chose Steve Vai was he wasn't familiar with his work with Roth or Zappa, but he had seen the '86 movie Crossroads.
Oh, yeah.
Where Steve Vai plays the guitarist in Hell that he goes up against Ralph Macchio.
Right. I thought Steve Vai was the devil in that.
No, it was a black guy was the devil.
Oh, okay.
Al
All
Sharpton.
right, so this
No,
was...
it wasn't Al Sharpton. It wasn't Al Sharpton.
Oh, man.
It's going to be protests for the Decibel Geek podcast. But no, he was impressed with how Vai played in the movie and invited him to be in the band.
That's cool.
And Adrian Vandenberg has revealed in several interviews that he thinks Vai's playing was somewhat inappropriate, and that a more bluesy approach would have suited the album better. I honestly agree with him.
Yeah.
I like Steve Vai. He's a great guitar player, but I didn't think he was the best fit for Whitesnake.
No, I think he definitely fit better in with what David Lee Roth was doing.
More out wacky. Whitesnake's more of a blues-based band.
But I'm surprised Whitesnake was even able to put out an album that year, considering that, lead singer is a little busy with his new bride. I know
certainly would be.
Rolling around on cars and stuff. Ain't got no time for making a new album.
Yeah.
But good stuff from Whitesnake. Coming down to the end of it. Now, if you're a band that was in Los Angeles in the late 80s, there's really actually a pretty easy formula to follow in order to make yourself a lot of cash. You come out with an album. It's got to have 2 or 3 nice songs for the ladies.
Of course.
The rest of the album's got to be hard rock songs about chicks for the dudes. And Warrant followed that formula to a T. Janie Lane freaking rocks. This is kind of, you compare it to like Enough's Enough where, Warrant was ready-made for this.
Right.
These guys were ready-made to make billions and billions of dollars where, these guys musically and image-wise were acclimated totally to what was going on at the time. Enough's Enough, image-wise, yeah, they had the look, kind of forced on them. Musically, they didn't really sound like that kind of stuff. Cheap Trick, influenced both these bands, but in different ways, and Janie Lane and Warrant. I mean, this one goes to number 10 on the U.S. Billboard album charts. It goes double platinum. The singles off it, Down Boys, goes to 27. Sometimes She Cries to 20. And Heaven, that's like the quintessential, 80s love ballad. Heaven goes to number 2. And, normally right about here, I'd say, this is the highest selling album this band ever come out with. Warrant would go on to reach even higher heights in 1990 with the release of Cherry Pie. So as huge as the debut is, and it's funny to think 1990, Warrant's at their peak.
Right.
That just shows, that this band was something a little more special than they get credit for, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. Before you get to your play out song, I wanted to mention one important news story. December 21st, Vice President Dan Quayle sends out 30,000 Christmas cards with the word beacon spelled B-E-A-K-O-N.
Wow. That guy, man. That guy, he had trouble spelling, he had it rough all the way around.
Spell that again. And add one little bit on the end. Think of potato. How's it? You write phonetically. What else? There you go.
It makes you wonder, you look at some of these presidents over the years, do they have vice presidents as kind of like an insurance policy against assassination?
I think so.
Like,
God forbid Joe Biden becomes our president.
Right, or somebody like Quayle or somebody like that, it's like, we can't kill Bush because then Quayle will become the president and then we're really screwed. So we might as well just ride out this whole Bush thing.
Yeah, I know a lot of comedians were really sad to see him leave office because he was an endless supply of material.
Yeah, he was.
Let me just tell you how thrilling it really is and what a challenge it is, because in 1988, the question is whether we're going to go forward to tomorrow or we're going to go past to the back. And I can tell you, listen, we don't want to go back to tomorrow. We want to move forward. I believe that I've made good judgments in the past, and I think I've made good judgments in the future. And the future will be better tomorrow. Well, Bobby Knight told me this. He says, there is nothing that a good defense cannot be a better offense. In other words, a good offense wins. I was known as the chief grave robber of my state. I have a very strong record on the environment in the United States Senate.
Hawaii has always been a very pivotal role in the Pacific. It is in the Pacific, the part of the United States that is an island that is right here.
Millions of innocent people lost their lives because of the bigotry and Hitlerism that permeated Germany and other parts of the world. It was an obscene period in our nation's history. No, not our nation's, but in World War II. I mean, we all lived in this century. I didn't live in this century, but in this century's history. Because we did not have, matter of fact, we fought Hitlerism, which was a totalitarian form of government.
The ones that almost made my list: Sabotage from Gutter Ballet, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mother's Milk. You heard that in the intro.
Yeah.
Aaron had that picked also.
Yeah, it works out.
The Soundgarden released Louder Than Love. Annihilator, Alice in Hell, Loudness had Soldier of Fortune, and the Screaming Trees released Buzz Factory. Those were all ones that almost made my list.
Okay, cool. Before we wrap things up here today, I want to remind everybody, go to www.decibelgeek.com. That's where you go through the link to Amazon. We talked about that already. That's where you're going to get your T-shirts. The link to that's there. Awesome. Check us out on Facebook. You want to become a part of the community. You want to get in on the conversation. Hey, 1989 was a year that was voted on by the listeners, and we decided to take that on because, you know what? You want it, you got it. That's how it works here at Decibel
We'll
Geek.
do it this way again next time.
Get in on the conversation. Join in the fun on Facebook. We're on Instagram. We're on Twitter. We're on YouTube. We are all over the place, you know, and we just got to take a minute to thank everybody that's come along on this ride with us. You know, we don't do these year in reviews very often because there's a lot of work involved in it, and we've become pretty busy guys around here lately, making sure that you guys got quality content to download every single Monday or Tuesday, depending on how close to the holidays it is.
Hey, we didn't take any weeks off during the holidays.
No, we didn't. We never take a week off. We're always here for you, so keep supporting us. I think the best way to wrap up the show before we get out of here, I got one last pick, but the American Music Awards. You want to get a good view on what music's happening in 1989, take a look at the AMAs that take place in January of 1990. It's basically a look back at the year at what the biggest things going on were. And the cool thing about it was Alice Cooper was one of the hosts on it.
Cool.
So he made a special appearance on it. Here's, you know, and we always say it at the end of these episodes, we've talked about some amazing bands and amazing albums that came out, but it wasn't all good music in 89 either.
No.
You know, so looking at the AMAs, the big winners from that year were the New Kids on the Block, Bobby Brown, Paula Abdul, man, she was foxy back then, Janet Jackson, Luther Vandross, Randy Travis, Reba McEntire, MC Hammer, his son, Young MC. That was a good moment, those two winning awards together that night.
About his son.
Tone Loc with the Funky Cole Medina and Milli Vanilli. We know how that all ended up. So those were the biggest winners from the American Music Awards for 1989. You know, those guys pretty much sum up what was wrong with music that year.
Yeah, I remember all that stuff.
Yeah, I can tolerate Tone Loc.
I tapped my foot to a few of them.
Not too much more than the rest of it. But however, in the AMAs, they also had some hard rock and heavy metal awards. So the favorite heavy metal hard rock new artist of the year, the nominees were Warrant, Winger, and Skid Row. And Skid Row won that year. So
That
the Skid
sounds
Row's,
about right.
you know, that's pretty good. Favorite heavy metal hard rock album of the year. This is where it's kind of funny because the nominees are Appetite for Destruction, Skid Row's debut album, and Dr. Feelgood by Motley Crue. Now, Appetite for Destruction.
It's been out a few years, hasn't it?
It's been out a few years,
Like
but
2
remember,
years?
but you got to remember, it's taken a while for Appetite for Destruction to really take off.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really until '89 that Appetite was huge. I mean, it started in '88. It was released in '87. Started getting
I guess
big in
88's when Welcome was released.
and by '89, Appetite was huge.
Because that's when Sweet Child of Mine came out.
That's right,
Yeah.
and that is why Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction wins Hard Rock Heavy Metal Album of the Year at the American Music Awards. And
What do we say? All right. So listen, we didn't even expect this. It's like really, you said come down, hang out at the show and stuff. So we thought we'd come down and hang out. It'd be 2 hours, we'd hang out and shit. Have a drink on us. Thank you very much.
Category, the Artist of the Year. The nominees are Aerosmith, Guns N' Roses, and Motley Crue. And Guns N' Roses takes the award at the American Music Awards.
All right, listen, I want to say a couple things I didn't get to say last time, right? I want to thank fucking, oops, all right, Doug Goldstein, Alan Niven. All right, listen, Tom Zutop for finding us, Alan Niven for fucking getting us there, Doug Goldstein.
Guns N' Roses, of course, Def Leppard is huge at this time because their hysteria is running crazy. Bon Jovi, Aerosmith, you know, we've pretty much covered the gamut as we've run down it. And, you know, talking about favorite albums, man, the one I was really looking forward the most to in 1989, without a doubt, was the return of Ace Frehley. That's right. This is the Spaceman's third post-Kiss album. I'm talking about Trouble Walking. And, you know, between you and me, I think this is the one where Ace Frehley really kind of found his footing as a solo artist. You know, the Frehley's comic stuff was always kind of hit and miss. You know, he had some really good stuff, had some kind of not so good stuff on it. But Trouble Walking to me was a complete Ace Frehley album.
It's a good album.
Really good album. I mean, you got to look at it, you know, the lineup is killer. They got Ace got amazing players, some really great songs on it. Lots of cool guests like Skid Row and Catman's on there. Peter Criss makes an appearance doing some background vocals. And man, Ace Frehley wails on this album.
It's a good one all the way through.
I mean, I looked forward to this so much in '89, and when it finally came out, I was not disappointed.
And I do remember the video for Do Ya actually got pretty good amount of play on MTV.
Yeah, it's a great cover.
Yeah, it is.
Ace really picks out some good ones.
I actually prefer his cover to the original.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Oh, yeah, he blows the LOO out of the water.
Cool. So I guess,
actually talk about covers on that album. I prefer the Ace Frehley version over the Kiss, talking about Hide Your Heart.
Yeah, it's looser.
Yeah, it is. It's looser, rawer. I like it a lot.
It's better solo, too.
Yeah, so there you have it. That's 1989 year in review. We're going to go on out with the Space Ace.
Yeah, sounds good.
And then we'll be back next week to let you know what our picks. What is the Decibel Geek album of the year?
Oh, I'm sure we'll be split.
You're going to find out next week. So till then, see ya.
See ya.